it's just my imagination again.
So what's for dinner tonight, Puff Mama? Chili?
Frozen. I don't know what's left to say about this movie.
Yep, I'm talking about the movie that spawned a song which plagued elementary school talent shows for years, and the one that included a really well-crafted villain twist, inserting tiny clues from the beginning which competes with some of the best twists of all time. Sorry, I can't even get it out.
This film was everywhere in 2013, and Let It Go was playing 24/7 wherever you went.
It was playing on your radio, on your refrigerator, on your Chia Pet. In fact, studies show that Disney even found a way to implant it into our subconscious. So even when you thought you were alone, you weren't. There was no escaping Let It Go.
Now, listen, I'm not here to say that Frozen is a bad movie.
And I'm not going to hate on it just because it's popular, because a lot of the praise is valid. The animation is beautiful, the songs are horrifyingly catchy, and the relationship between Anna and Elsa is both tragic and heartwarming.
But beyond that, there's not a whole lot.
And I really believe if it wasn't for Let It Go, this movie would have been on the same level as every other recent Disney animated movie. You know the ones I'm talking about, the one where everyone realized The Rock can sing, the other one with the fox which the entirety of TikTok continues to simp for, and the one with another great Disney villain twist. I'm sorry, I keep thinking I can get it out.
That was his mistake.
Now, I have a feeling that if I stopped naming the recent Disney animated movies here, most people would say, well, yeah, that's all of them.
But no. You seem to be missing one key flaw that
You what?
You told me that those were all of them, but you forgot the one that's actually better than Frozen. Tangled is a 2010 neo-noir thriller, directed by Nathan Greno and Byron Howard. The film does have great reviews, and honestly made quite a bit of money, at over $500 million. But compared to Frozen's box office, I mean, why? It's just an ordinary Disney movie.
Oh my goodness!
And see, that's the problem. This film isn't underrated in the slightest. It's just overlooked.
There was a time above, a time before, when Tangled was the Disney movie people talked about. But then, you know.
So today, I feel like it's my sworn duty here on YouTube to remind everyone about this film's greatness.
To remind you how Maximus is the Olaf of the cool kids, and how Kristoff has nothing on Flynn Rider, and how Mother Gothel is leagues above Pretty Boy over here.
Today, it's time we talk about the overlooked Disney masterpiece that is Tangled.
So, I have a lot of thoughts about this movie, and there's no linear way to explain all of it. So I'll just be talking about certain things whenever it feels right to talk about them. Alright, let's get started.
For the first category of the day, we have arguably the most memorable thing about any Disney movie. The songs. And no, I'm done talking about Let It Go.
But in terms of music, one thing that Tangled completely trumps Frozen in is personality and charm. Yeah, Let It Go is a mainstream hit, Do You Want to Build a Snowman is heartwarming, and that one reindeer song is, well, no one remembers that one reindeer song. And I would say that out of all the songs in Frozen, the Trolls one has the most personality. But come on, it has nothing on the charm in Tangled songs. I mean, I Have a Dream is iconic. Everyone in that bar deserves the world. And the entire song has a really good message about how people may have more layers to them than it appears. And because Disney decided to change Frozen at the last second and make Pretty Boy the bad guy instead of Elsa, no, seriously, I'm still mad that that wasn't in the final cut. We never got a villain song.
But even if we did, no way would it have even come close to Mother Gothel's banger of Mother Knows Best.
Not only does it perfectly showcase how Gothel completely manipulates Rapunzel, but the entire presentation of it is so fast-paced and inspired. And while the first time she sings it is great and playful, it's even more epic by the campfire scene. At this point, Gothel is close to being unhinged, and her actress Donna Murphy has some incredible vocals. I don't know about it being better than Adele Dazeem's, but it's still fantastic and so intimidating. When Will My Life Again is a pretty catchy song and perfectly portrays her repetitive life in the tower. And I love how it has the exact same energy as this. But I cannot talk about this film's music without talking about the beautiful I See the Light. Not only is the setting gorgeous, the reflection of the lights on the water making it look like they're floating through space, but the actual song and the lyrics are so good. And I love how both of our leads are both literally and figuratively seeing the light. And finally, the actual song to trigger the hair's powers is amazing for how diverse it is. It can be totally creepy in one scene, intense in the next, and completely heartbreaking in another.
So, are the songs as memorable or catchy as Frozen? Probably not.
I mean, if you ask anyone to sing Let It Go or Love is an Open Door, they'd probably be able to do it. But Tangled definitely wins in the charm department. And for a Disney movie, it's kind of up to you to decide if memorability or charm matters more.
And I got to say, the actual orchestral score in Tangled is fantastic.
One small moment in particular is right after Rapunzel finally stands up to Gothel. The score goes from whimsical to intense in the blink of an eye. And by far my favorite orchestral moment is the Kingdom Dance. The song titled, well, Kingdom Dance, is just so upbeat and beautiful. It has a very Irish pub feel, and I even remember as a kid just being in love with it.
But all of these songs are bolstered by the incredible and vivid animation.
Which, this is probably just a personal preference at this point, but I really love the setting of Tangled so much more than in Frozen. Frozen is beautiful, yeah, but it's basically the same snow throughout the entire movie, which, to be fair, is expected for a movie titled Frozen. But Tangled is set in a very green, summery setting, which I just personally find so much more aesthetically pleasing. The kingdom itself just feels like it has so much more personality than these guys. And Tangled has some genuinely dark and creepy imagery that Frozen lacks.
So, now that we got the technical side of things done, it's time we start comparing the real nitty-gritty of the movie.
And by nitty-gritty, I mean the real controversial stuff which will definitely start wars in the comments. Begun the fan wars has.
It's time to talk about the story and characters.
Okay, I'm just gonna say it. Maximus is a Chad and way funnier than Olaf. Now, to be fair, I will say rewatching Frozen, Olaf is definitely funnier and less annoying than I remember. And he even has some stake in the plot. Also, this is a complete tangent and I promise we'll get to the King Maximus in a second, but this scene in Frozen could have had people bawling in the theater if they did it right. Imagine if instead of this giant room, it took place in a compact scene where both Anna and Olaf were forced to stay next to the fire. And Anna is begging Olaf not to light it, as she doesn't want to lose him. But he does it anyway to save her and warm her up just enough until the act of love can heal her. Can you imagine how emotional this scene would have been? The comic relief slowly melting into the ground. But what do I know? I'm just a kid in high school. Alright, moving on. Back to Maximus. Maximus is straight up hilarious. And you know why? Because he doesn't talk. Yeah, Olaf does have some good lines, but for the most part, he's just saying stuff that doesn't add any real substance. Maximus, though, all of his comedy comes through how alive the animation is. And Maximus is allowed to not talk, because Flynn Rider carries most of the hilarious lines in the movie. And trust me, we will get to him. But I love how even from his first scene, with him ordering the other horses after his captain just did the same thing to his soldiers, we see exactly who Maximus is. This horse takes his job so incredibly serious and will stop at nothing until he catches Flynn Rider. And I like how much they're constantly butting heads when they're forced to work together. And this scene in particular, with Maximus not wanting to eat the apples if they're stolen, perfectly defines his character. And yeah, Frozen is cool and all, but Tangled found a way to give a character arc to a non-talking horse.
Yeah, name another movie that's done that.
So I would say that Olaf is Maximus's counterpart, as they're both the lead comic reliefs, which means Dasher is Pascal's counterpart.
And I think you know which one I like better.
Pascal is a straight up G. I just love his personality, and he's actually the one that ends up defeating Gothel. Dancer just simply doesn't have anything on him. In fact, name one personality trait of Prancer. He's Kristoff's friend? Or dog? I guess? I mean, to be fair, like Vixen, Pascal doesn't have a whole lot to do, but for Rapunzel's entire life, he's really been the only one supporting her, and there's something so beautiful in that. Alright, if any of you right now thought that the fan war was already bad with these two takes, wait until you hear this, even though it is a completely factual statement. The Chad himself, Flynn Rider, aka Eugene Fitzherbert, aka the voice of Shazam, is leagues better than Kristoff. Let me explain. Actually, there's really not a whole lot to explain. Flynn Rider just has so much more personality than Kristoff, and the animation, voice acting, and writing all have an equal share in accomplishing this. Flynn's animation is perfect, not only in the face, which by the way, apparently when they were working out his design, Disney got all of the female employees in a room to describe their dream guy, and Eugene was the combination of all of those different qualities, which makes perfect sense for how much of a Chad he is.
Aye.
But also, his animation is so fluid. The way he fights off guards with a frying pan, which by the way is the only known weapon on Earth to defeat Thanos, and the way he jumps over his restraints and slides down water is just full of the exaggerated swagger of a Disney teen.
And they couldn't have nailed the casting down better.
Shazam himself, Zachary Levi, was the most perfect choice they could have made. The way he delivers his lines, especially in that part when he's talking about all the blood in the guy's mustache so Rapunzel will want to go back home, is a big part of why he's so much funnier and more likable than Kristoff. Not that Kristoff isn't likable, because of course he is. He's the scrappy young guy that goes on the adventure with the lead, and we're supposed to see how much better of a guy he is than Hans.
And that's the biggest difference between them.
Kristoff is designed and supposed to be likable. Flynn Rider just is.
And Flynn has so much more depth to him too.
The way he tries so hard to play up his fake image is fascinating, and it makes total sense. As a kid who had nothing, who wouldn't want everything? This is another big difference from these two. Kristoff is pretty content with his life as is, while Flynn wants to just keep adding more lies until he's crafted his perfect life. So it actually has meaning when he sings I See the Light with Rapunzel, as he finally found someone who makes him feel comfortable enough to be his true self. That scene of him telling her his real name is so emotional, as he truly believes that she will be the last person he ever sees. And telling her lets her take her mind off the situation a bit and lighten things up. All he ever wanted was things for his own gain, and betrayed so many people to get it. However, at the end when he cuts Rapunzel's hair, he was willing to die if it meant she didn't have to be a slave to Gothel anymore, as he was really the only one who ever saw how abused she was being.
So, if it wasn't for him, Gothel would have never been stopped. Which is saying a ton for how much of a phenomenal villain Mother Gothel is.
I'm sure this is one of the biggest hot takes on the internet, even bigger than people who claim to like Star Wars Rise of the fanfiction, but I don't care. Mother Gothel is the most terrifying Disney villain to date, and it is criminal how overlooked she is. I won't even be comparing her to Hans in this segment, as he doesn't deserve to go up against someone as powerful as the Mother Gothel. And I truly believe that she was so good because they didn't force a twist with her, unlike you know who.
That was his take.
Something that makes Mother Gothel so interesting is that she doesn't have any powers herself. She's just an old lady who is incredibly good with words and manipulation. The only power she has comes from Rapunzel's hair. The way she manipulates Rapunzel is just captivating, and even though we saw her kidnap her in the very beginning, the character still has enough charm to her to make it totally believable how Rapunzel would think that she's her mother. The way she teases Rapunzel and makes jokes is so charismatic and almost makes us forget what we saw in the first few minutes of the movie. All she ever does is tell Rapunzel how terrifying the outside world is and how it's full of bad people. But what I love most about this statement is that Gothel is partially right. There are bad people in the world, but what she decides to leave out is that that's not all there is. There are genuinely good people in the world, which is what Rapunzel comes to find out when she meets Eugene. So Gothel isn't completely lying, but more like bending the truth, which is a huge manipulative tactic that she does so perfectly. The way she sets up those two other guys attacking her so she can be the good guy syndrome style was perfectly done. And when she goes back to the tower, Gothel takes away the one thing that made Rapunzel more mobile and able to escape than ever: the braids in her hair. It's also the only thing which would remind her of what happened. Although, as Rapunzel starts to reveal the truth and says the most savage line of the movie,
"Did I mumble, Mother?"
Did I stutter?
Gothel goes from cunning to straight up unhinged. I mean, at one point, she is literally dragging her into a cellar which she'll never be able to leave. How is this not terrifying? Why is she not talked about, like, at all?
The scariest part about all of this is that human trafficking is a real thing that can actually happen.
Gothel doesn't want world domination or money or whatever. All she wants is to stay young. And using Rapunzel like a pet, which is literally what she calls her in one of her songs, is the only way for her to do that. The fact that human trafficking was done so realistically and terrifying in a Disney movie is so important and needs to be talked about more. Now, I know I said I wasn't going to talk about and fix Hans's character, but I'm sorry. It's just gonna bug me if I don't.
It's starting to give me a rash.
If you really want to do a twist villain, you can't make it as drastic like you did in the movie. Can you imagine how cool it would have been in the film if they did kiss, but then saw how it didn't work, as they realized that they don't actually love each other, they just love the idea of each other. It would make the whole don't marry a man you just met theme so much better. And then after that, you can still have Hans wanting to stop Elsa, but just in a less murderous way, because where did this come from?
Although, even if they did do this, it would not come close to the subtlety and terrifying nature of Mother Gothel. Nothing ever will.
So now, I guess the last thing to really talk about is the difference between the two main characters. The greatest gladiator match in the history of the world. It's now time to talk about Rapunzel versus Anna, and how much of a better character Rapunzel is. Now, I'm just going to start this off with a quick PSA. Anna is a great character, and probably the best of the movie. And to be fair, Rapunzel and Anna are pretty similar, especially with how they're both tired of their everyday lives trapped in one place. However, there's one big difference that that separates them, and it's about their motivations. Rapunzel's motivations about wanting to see the lights are clear, and she becomes a better person because of it.
Anna's motivations, on the other hand, are straight up whack.
Let me just run you through Anna's character here. We see at the very beginning that all she wants to do is see and play with her sister, which is a genuinely good and sad scene. However, get this, we then jump to her being older at her sister's coronation, and all she cares about is meeting a guy. She is literally going to interact with her sister for the first time in like a decade, and all she cares about is meeting a guy. Like, what? And then when they do finally talk, it's about Anna wanting to get married and not about each other. Yeah, no wonder Elsa gets so mad at her. Like, what is she doing? Rapunzel's motivations, however, are very clear, and it's all thanks to Gothel's iron grip. All she wants to do is see the lights, although she's scared to go out into the real world, because all she has ever been told by her mother is how weak and useless she is compared to the evil of the world. Imagine being told your entire life that you aren't strong enough to do anything. That is exactly what she went through. So when she finally does overcome stuff, it's so much more meaningful. At this point, it isn't about seeing the lights. It's about her seeing her self-worth and how powerful she truly is, which ultimately culminates in her finally standing up to Gothel. And the way she hesitates as she sees her control is depleting is just oh so satisfying.
Why is this movie not talked about more?
Now, to be fair, 2010 had a stacked lineup in terms of animated features. Everything from the Toy Story movie that traumatized 6-year-old me in theaters, to the Shrek that no one remembers exists, to that one animated movie where an evil villain learns to be a better person, to the other animated movie where an evil villain learns to be a better person, to animated Game of Thrones. So it was going to be hard for it to stand out. Although it somehow didn't even get a nominee for Best Animated Feature. And Frozen coming out just a few years later was the killing blow. If Tangled had come out any other year, I think it would have been much more remembered. However, even if it doesn't ever get the appreciation it deserves, at least us fans will be able to continue enjoying it for years to come.
But I still have the feeling that the one thing that could have made it so much better is if Gothel was a twist villain. Sorry, just cut to the outro.
That was his mistake.